All right, good evening, everybody. If everybody can go ahead and find a seat, we're going to get started. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. My name is Jason Geary. I'm the Senior Director of Communications for Polk County Public Schools. I'm going to introduce Mr. Hyde in a second to kind of give you guys a welcome, but I do appreciate everybody being here this evening and taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. I also want to say thank you very much to Roosevelt Academy for the use of their lovely auditorium. We really appreciate that, and thank you for your being hospitable hosts. We appreciate it. Now I'm going to turn things over for a second to Mr. Hyde.
Good evening, everyone. So I know we're recording tonight's meeting, so it's like the first rock concert of the year. And so we, as you know, since I've arrived here, we host 10 or more different seminars throughout the county. We continue to try and add opportunities, and we continue to try and add topics. So tonight, this year, an important topic we need to continue to seek to address are our supports and services for our students with exceptionalities. But I will pause for a moment because unfortunately I can't stay for the entirety of tonight's meeting because tonight is my mom's 77th birthday. Now she's going to be very upset. She's going to be very angry at me if she sees this broadcast because I told her age. So if anybody asks, she's 35 for the second time. We'll just leave it at that, all right? So it is my pleasure to be here tonight and to welcome all of you. There have been a number of changes in exceptional student education driven based off need. If any of you have been to any of my community sessions, you've heard me say one of our primary functions is to help families feel like they transition from being passengers in their child's education to being true partners in their child's education. And that is especially true for our parents with English language learners and our students with children with exceptionalities, because it can feel like the process and the system, more often than not, is stacked against you. And I'll give you an example. By law, there's a specified amount of time in which we must evaluate a student once he or she is identified for evaluation. The problem is that same law arguably allows an entire half of a school year to pass before we actually seek to address that student's needs. And quite frankly, that's not a system that I can continue to support. When I arrived here, I looked at multiple evaluations that were conducted, and there are a lot of issues that were replicated in both of those evaluations, many of which that spoke to systemic issues within the department that needed to be addressed. And so we've been very slowly working to rectify that and add staff and add support services in areas that are desperately needed. At the same time, unfortunately, we face a national shortage of qualified educators, especially those with speech-language backgrounds, especially those with clinical psychology backgrounds, mental health assistants. I said speech. We also have a shortage of physical therapists, occupational therapists, and teachers who can teach exceptionalities. And if you want to find the golden unicorn, find me an ESC teacher who's bilingual and willing to teach kindergarten, because that is an incredibly difficult position to fill. And yet, we cannot continue to ignore those needs. And so what we've tried to do, and I'm very grateful for our board, and I know that Miss Miller is here, Miss Lisa Miller, so she'll just quickly wave. She was there a second ago. She snuck out. She snuck out because she knew I was going to call on her. But we have a board who supported us revisiting our school allocation model. The school allocation model, simply stated, tells me how many positions a school qualifies for, based primarily first off of the number of students enrolled, and then secondarily based off the specificity of that child's needs. Now, some of that can also, as you know, be articulated in the child's IEP, but for other student groups, we need to make sure, if there are specialty needs, that we're providing those resources. So in year one, this last summer, we focused heavily on school counselors. And if you've been watching school board meetings, you saw that we actually created multiple pathways now for school counselors, which align to the state of Florida's initiatives that allow us to actually pay individuals now, while they do their internships, to continue to work towards their teaching certification. And so we've created far more flexibility than ever before, because we need those individuals who have a heart and a passion for supporting our students to be able to earn those roles while working, because the days of us telling someone that they need to do a 9-week internship unpaid, it simply can't happen. The financial restrictions on that individual, his or her family, it just simply can't happen any longer. We need to make sure that we're creating a system where we can honor and respect the work that they're doing. Other areas that we're focusing on is exceptional student education as it relates to student discipline. And this is another strong indicator of the fact that we do not have good systems in place to allow our staff and administrators to communicate effectively, and they're both responsible for some of the miscommunication, to address those needs. Let me give you an example. At the end of the first 9 weeks, I had a data pull done and asked for a list of all students in Polk County Public Schools who had already received 10 disciplinary referrals. You would be shocked to learn that over 60% of those students have an IEP or a 504. And yet, there hasn't been a subsequent referral for reevaluation for those students. So their initial diagnosis or their initial disability could have been speech language, except the student has now received 10 disciplinary referrals and has been suspended, placed in in-school suspension, has been counseled, and yet there's been no subsequent referral for reevaluation. Because clearly now there's a pattern of behavior emerging, and what frustrates schools is, well, why I can't suspend this student, they just had another fight, and I have to tell the school, but you're not fulfilling your responsibility of making sure that either the BIP is being followed, the behavior intervention plan, or that we're referring that student for reevaluation because he or she may have something that we previously failed to identify. And so there are systems that we have to put in place moving forward if we're going to continue to serve our students adequately. So meetings like tonight are really important to give you more background information and to ensure that we can collect some of your questions. This presentation, much like a classroom lesson, how many teachers do I have in the audience? Former teachers, current teachers. So if you were like me, and maybe you weren't, maybe you were much better than I was in the classroom, although I was Sarasota County's Teacher of the Year, I'll just put that out there. My first period class never got the benefit of the same lesson that my last period class got, right? Because every period I got better at teaching that lesson based off student feedback, their questions, their inquiry. And so sometimes I actually mixed it up, and I would put my first lesson towards the end of the day, so the next day, the first three classes would actually benefit from a new activity, so I'd had a little bit more experience with. But the truth of the matter is, that's part of our issue now. And we have to continue to focus on how do we continuously improve. So these presentations, based off your interaction and your feedback, the topics will probably get longer because we'll develop an FAQ that goes along with these presentations to ensure that we're covering all of those big items that are causing concern or frustration or suggestions that you may have. As we go into this year, we continue to reevaluate our staffing allocation model. We continue to reevaluate how do we best support our schools. We made some changes from the LEA positions. We're reevaluating that based off feedback and again, making sure that we have enough staff. And some of those initial changes were driven based off caseload. We had some LEAs that had over 300 students on their caseload, and yet a full-time LEA at another school had less than 20. That does not adequately address the needs of our students. However, we need to be respectful of the fact that those LEAs primarily felt connected to a school. That was their home, that was their family. And so how now moving forward do we revisit that and address those needs, and also adding additional positions? We moved our positions out of the general budget, out of the IDEA budget into the general budget because we were losing out on our ability to bill for reimbursable services. And an external review said we were losing out on several $1 million a year. Now those dollars are not going to go back into the general budget. Those dollars are committed to going right back into the same department that serves these students, because that's where the dollars should be spent. But now that we have a reserve in the IDEA budget, Ms. Williams and her team are in a much better position to reevaluate staffing at the school level and make decisions in real time based off actual need, based off the number of service, based off the level of supports an individual student or group of students requires, not just a generalized number of students who have an IEP or a 504. So I want to welcome you this evening. Thank you for taking time out of your days and evenings to come out here. Thank goodness we didn't host this on Halloween. We'd have no one in the audience because we're not handing out candy. So again, thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Geary.
Thank you, sir. All right, well, in a moment, we're going to turn things over to Tammy Williams, and she's going to go over her presentation that Mr. Hyde alluded to before. But also, if you have a question, we do have question cards that you can fill out. The reason why we've chosen that, and the reason I wanted to explain why we chose that format, is twofold. The first is that this is being live streamed, and this meeting is open to the public. So we wanted to make sure that we could answer any questions that we received in an efficient manner. This will allow us to be able to group like questions and be able to ask them efficiently. The other reason is that we wanted to make sure that any questions that are asked, that it doesn't reveal any personally identifiable student information. So that's another reason why. This is, again, an open meeting to the public, and it's also being live streamed and broadcast. And I want to remind everybody about that too. So without any further hesitation, Ms. Williams, would you like to come up?
Hi, good evening. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Learning Support Division. Nice to see you all tonight. Thank you for coming out. Welcome to our Learning Support Division Town Hall meeting. Our division consists of Behavior and Mental Health Department, Exceptional Student Education Department, and Student Services. And our goal in the next hour is to provide valuable information to one another and be collaborative partners in educating our children. Last year, Superintendent Hyde expressed a need for urgency as the term "the kids are waiting" was shared with us. This year, we are addressing the importance of taking ownership of our work and considering our personal and collective contributions while focusing on student outcomes. So this evening, we will be addressing your questions as a team. And the leadership support team panel includes some of the staff from the district and also some of the staff from the schools. And also we will have additional individualized support if anything is needed outside of the panel as well. So the mission statement for our division, we work collaboratively. We collaborate collectively across departments, support school-based teams, and build capacity to impact student outcomes. And our vision statement is, while keeping students at the forefront of our thinking, we will make data-based decisions and develop systems that will lead to positive systemic change as we work diligently to serve students and families in Polk County. The Florida Department of Education publishes an annual local education agency profile, some of you may know it as LEA, that outlines documentation of district-level data, including expectations for serving our students with disabilities. If this data source determines a need for change over multiple years, an on-site visit takes place. Based on recent on-site visit in April 20th, 2023 to Polk County Schools by Florida Department of Education, we are currently creating multiple action plans and training plans to address the numerous concerns. Due to the database required actions currently in place, we recognize that there is a sense of urgency to change our way of work here in Polk County Schools. Mr. Hyde alluded to that. We have created learning support regional teams to work collaboratively with school-based teams along with families to improve student outcomes. And there's a list of senior manager of ESE, the senior manager of behavior, program compliance specialists, district instructional coaches. We also have the academic behavior support teachers that are from the behavior mental health team. Social workers, school psychologists are from the student services team. Mental health facilitators are also from the behavior mental health team. And we have local assistive technology specialists and related service providers as well. The district administrators, including the senior managers, will lead the school-based teams in analyzing the data, developing solutions, addressing the need for supports, and providing input to address ongoing professional learning in our training, located in our training plans. Florida Department of Education provides support to assigned districts across the state using various discretionary projects. We have a phenomenal group of team members here this evening to provide additional information on how support is provided to us here in Polk County Public Schools. We will start with Ms. Ellie Weber.
Good evening. Thank you, guys. I am Ellie Weber. I'm one of the assistant directors at CARD USF. We're going with, it's the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, but we are more of a community-based program. We're a discretionary project of the Department of Education, so like the other groups that are coming up to talk. And our grant money is through the DOE, but what's wonderful about our project is we can reach out to families and work as somewhat of a liaison between the school sometimes and the family, and also the community and the family. So we have a lot of, it's offered at no charge to both the schools utilize us, the families, and the community entities. So we provide resources and guidance to the individuals on the spectrum, their families, and we try to do that, whether it's virtually or in the community, but we also can go in person, whether it's their home, and assess what's happening. But remember, we are more of resource and guidance. So don't let the word center fool you, because sometimes they think that that is more clinical, and I already met some clinicians tonight. We cannot provide those services, but we can hook you up with the best services possible for you in your area. That's what our goal is. So we deliver training and outreach. We support teachers, other professionals, businesses, and community programs. And I think the next one might have some of what we do. So you can register online, and that will at least get you in the door so that we know. You just have to have proof of a diagnosis for that. And we serve individuals from the diagnosis throughout their lifetime. Or again, free services. We do have a lot of community projects, whether it be safety. So out at the table, we have safety products. We have an autism-friendly service that some of the things that you go to the community can at least, have some knowledge of autism as a client, as you guys come in as customers, but also it can prepare them to employ individuals on the spectrum. So we have a lot of different projects. I also have a flyer out there for a parent training for kids that are 1 to 6. And so we offer that for 3 or 4 times during the year. We offer in English and in Spanish. So there's a lot of things out there that we can offer families and connect them. Also, we do that with schools. So, next person.
Dr. Poinsettia Tillman with Fiddlers. Thank you. Give a round of applause for CARD, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Poinsettia Tillman, and I am the director for the Florida Diagnostic and Learning Resources System, Fiddlers. We are a discretionary project through the Florida Department of Education under the Bureau of Exceptional Education and Student Services. We have 4 functions. The first one is Child Find. So we do developmental screenings free of charge to families for kids ages 3 to 5 years old who have never been enrolled in a public school program. And that consists of the 5 developmental domains, plus vision and hearing, and behavior as needed. We also have parent and family services function, and that function provides technical assistance and professional learning opportunities to families. We have what we call a ticketed help desk system through the Florida Department of Education. So parents can go onto our website or on the DOE website, and if they have questions, they can put in a ticket. Regardless of what the question is, we try to get them an answer or to the person who can help them in the district. We get a lot of questions about my child has an IEP, I need to get a reeval, what do I need to do, who do I need to talk to, or I'm moving here from Ohio, what school is my child going to go to, and we just collaborate with district partners to get them the help that they need. We also have human resource development, and that's professional learning opportunities and technical assistance for principals and district staff and school teachers. We go into the classrooms, we do observations, we provide coaching and mentoring to teachers. We offer a variety of professional learning opportunities in person, blended. We have independent study modules. We help work closely with the certification department so people can get their in-service points for SWD credit and that type of thing. And then we also have a technology function where we work closely with the local assistive technology team in the district to go out and assess students and train their parents on technology devices that might be beneficial to them for them to access the the curriculum or to communicate those types of things. So we have lots of resources out there in the lobby. All of our services, like she mentioned previously, are free of charge at no cost to the district or the families. We're fully grant funded by DOE, and all of our staff are fully funded by DOE as well. But if you have any questions, if you need any resources, we'd be happy to assist you. Thank you.
You look so good. Hi, Ms. Kim Thorne with Project 10, Transition Education Network.
Hi, good evening. Just like the first two speakers, we are a discretionary grant out of the Florida Department of Education focused on all things transition as they relate to our students with disabilities. The first one is the graduation rate. We want all of our students graduating with their standard diploma. We want to make sure that is a high target level. We're also tasked with dropout rate. We want to have a small dropout rate. The third thing is Indicator 13, which is our transition IEP compliance. We want to be compliant, but we also want to have a quality IEP, as that IEP is planning for your youth's future. And then Indicator 14 is the post-school outcomes. We want to make sure that our students are graduating to be contributing members of society, that we're not graduating them, as someone said earlier today for me, we're not graduating them to the couch. We want them to be productive members of society. We are tasked with building capacity between the school district and agencies in that interagency collaboration. We are also tasked with, as transition legislation gets passed, this is usually in May, with making sure that all 67 school districts across the state are aware of those new transition legislations as they happen. And we have a plethora of publications on our website. We have the QR code there. There are many, many, many publications for families about all things transition. As students are 11 turning 12, we start talking with them about what they want to be when they grow up, so that we can start planning as they go through middle and high school to have the experiences while they're in the K-12 public school system to make them be successful. Out at the table, we do have some of our handouts, but I also have a sheet with QR codes. We have our family publications in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. So stop by and take a look.
Last but not least, we have Ms. Hillary Grondin with SEDNet.
Hello, SEDNet, we are a multi-agency network. We work with keys to meet the needs of students with emotional and behavioral disabilities. Sorry. We work with mental health, child welfare. We work with juvenile justice. We, just to make sure we have that full continuum of support for our students with emotional and behavioral disabilities. We push into schools and provide training and resources for teachers and school staff to meet the needs of those students so that they can be successful in the classroom. And then we also work with families to connect them to key stakeholders in the community and different service providers to provide wraparound supports for them. Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. Please take advantage. I know they have tables outside as well. So we will now begin our question-answer session. Please remember that your voices are important, and we really thank you for being here. So if the panel will come up to the front, please, and then we'll introduce ourselves.
And as our panelists come up and get seated and take their positions here, there are 2 microphones that they're going to be utilizing, and they'll pass down to each other to help answer the questions as they come through. And if we could first, if we can take the microphone on each end, and what we're going to do is we're going to pass it down and have everybody introduce who they are and what they do with the school district, starting here with Mr. Bruno.
Ty Bruno, Senior Director of High Schools.
Good evening, Tracy Collins, Chief of High Schools.
Hi there, I'm Beth Nave, and I am the Regional Assistant Superintendent for the South Region.
Hi, good evening, Tammy Williams.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sherry Scott. I am the Director for Student Services and Section 504.
Hi, everybody. Denise Santos, Director of Behavior Mental Health.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're going to go start with some of the questions that we have here. And again, what I'm going to do is I've grouped up some of these questions that are sort of like topics. And again, if any one of the panelists who wants to be able to answer or field the question, just go ahead and either raise your hand and have somebody will pass the microphone down to you, okay? So we have one of the first questions here is about class size, and in particular, maintaining class size, and what are we doing to help maintain the correct number of students in a class so that it's good for learning and that also it makes sense and isn't overcrowded.
Okay, so what I think I heard you say is about maintaining class size?
Yes, and making sure that it's optimum amount of students in there for learning.
Yes, sir.
What are
So
we
the
doing?
staffing ratio is 1 to 13 for separate classes. And then we have for resource classes, which is when students sometimes are pulled out for a percentage of time, that is 1 to 15. And that's for elementary. And then we have 1 to 20 for students who are in the inclusion setting. So the further the students go in the continuum, as far as going into a less restrictive environment, the number of students per teacher increases. And so what we do, we are actually utilizing our senior managers and our regional support teams that we talked about earlier to make sure that we're addressing the needs of the classroom. Because if there are classes that have 13 students and many of them are students with learning disabilities and language impairments, that may look a little bit different than the needs in a classroom of 13 students who have ASD, so which is autism. So we look at that on an individual basis to address the needs, to make sure that we are providing the appropriate allocation. We meet frequently to address the concerns, and any concerns that are brought by the regionals as well, we make sure that we address them.
And just for clarification, when she said 1 to 1, she means one teacher, one para. So just for clarification.
Yeah, thank you. And this is kind of a similar topic, but there might be somebody who wants to jump in on this one too. And it has to do with what are we doing about ESE pre-K classrooms? It says, not having a cap on the number of students. And in particular, they say that not allowing a second para until 19 are in a classroom is unsafe. Basically, what are we doing to try to reduce those numbers? It's a little bit similar to the same question, but is there a cap like that? Go ahead.
Yes, we start looking at that again when it's 1 to 1, which is one teacher, one para to 13 students. And we are looking at those students in those classrooms frequently as well. The number of students that are coming in to be evaluated, we've actually addressed it utilizing evaluation teams. We had a backlog of evaluations that needed to be completed, and because we had a backlog of the evaluations that need to be completed, now we have a lot of students that will need to be staffed and placed. And so we're working through how that looks, and we're trying to open up additional classrooms as we work together. Many classrooms have been opened up in numerous schools, and we are working together on how that looks moving forward.
Okay.
And I know Mr. Hyde is also addressing pre-K sites. We're just in the process of looking into that.
This question deals with the general ed setting, and it says if a student is already staffed ESE and it is evident that the general ed setting is not the correct placement, why can't we hold a meeting to change the placement? Sure. If a student is already staffed ESE and it is evident that the general ed setting is not the correct placement, why can't we hold a meeting to change the placement?
Is this from? So basically the decisions to drive placement are data-based. And so if a parent would like for a child to be placed into a more restrictive setting, then as long as there is data to support that, it's a team decision. Your voice matters, and it's a team decision. We always want to make sure that we address the needs for students in the least restrictive environment, but that doesn't mean that has to be the inclusion setting in order for it to be least restrictive for that particular student.
And can you explain a little bit about what the least restricted environment is and why that is important to make sure that a student is in the least restricted environment?
Yes, sir. So least restrictive environment is when a student needs services. We have the inclusive environment, which is students who spend 80 to 100% of their time with gen ed students. We have the resource setting, which is, it's not actually a setting, it's a resource student that spends 40 to 79% of their time in gen ed setting. And then we have what's called a separate class, and that means that a student spends 0 to 39% of their day or of their week with students who are gen ed.
Okay. This question deals with our ESE support for ESE programs, and in particular, what kind of resources are we investing into our ESE programs to better support students?
Could you repeat that? It's about
Sure.
resources?
Yes. What are we placing any additional resources to assist our students in our ESE programs?
So it goes back to the IEP team, and if decisions are made based on data, then we make sure that we provide that level of support, whether it's augmentative communication systems, whether it is additional support to the student, as long as there's data to support that. We make sure that we provide that. It's our responsibility to make sure we're providing a free and appropriate public education for all of our students. And so again, if we have the data to support that, we certainly will provide the resources to make that happen.
This question was specifically about mental health supports. What kind of mental health supports are available for my child?
Hi. Okay, so when we talk about mental health supports, it's a wide range. It could be, when we're looking at life skills, when we're looking at resiliency skills. We can also have different tiered approaches. For somebody who requires more intensive supports, we have mental health professionals in our district, and we also contract with mental health professionals to provide mental health services depending on what the student needs. What I want to clarify is that the mental health supports are for all students. It's not just students with disabilities or students with IEP or 504. All students, based on the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, have access to mental health supports. What the supports look like is based on the student need. And so at the tier 1, we're looking at everybody getting the same exact, getting same support, whether it's through social, so character education, there's resiliency lessons. At the tier 2, maybe it's a small group, maybe it's a lunch bunch, maybe it's a drumbeat. And when you're looking at tier 3, then we're looking more like something more individualized, more targeted type mental health supports. And we are going more towards the counseling, educational counseling, where we're providing that support for the student so they're able to function within the environment, their classroom. If we go through a student who may need higher level of support because what they're working with and what they're dealing with is outside of the scope of our school staff, then we recommend to the community and we provide referrals to the community. So it's a whole continuum when it comes to mental health supports for our students, all students.
One other thing that we've done in terms of mental health is we've expanded the number of staff that we have that can provide these mental health supports. So all of our traditional public schools now have a mental health team. And that mental health team includes the school counselors that are part of the school, and it also includes the district itinerant staff. So the district itinerant staff include our school psychologists, our school social workers, and our mental health facilitators. So we have been able to use funding from the state to just expand the number of people who are available to deal with those concerns as we're seeing that need continue to increase.
Okay. This question deals with bullying in particular. What's the process for if a parent has a concern about bullying? What should they do? Go ahead.
So thank you for that concern about bullying. We are seeing that bullying is a major concern across our district in certain areas. If you as a parent have a concern about bullying, the first thing that you need to do is you need to communicate that concern to us. There's a couple of ways for you to do that. Probably one of the easiest ways is to fill out our online bullying report, which is available through the district website. That online bullying report will create an email message that will go directly to the school principal to communicate that concern. You can also bring that concern to any staff member at the school, and they should be able to direct you to the person who can assist you, which is the school administrator. In situations involving bullying, our school administrators, by statute, are required to conduct those preliminary reviews into that situation and to conduct a full investigation if a full investigation is warranted. We have expanded supports to schools to address the concerns related to bullying by training now all of our school social workers to be able to assist principals with investigation and intervention when it comes to bullying situations. In the past, we only had 3 social workers for the whole entire district that were trying to assist in terms of bullying. And now, thankfully, with support from the district, we've been able to expand that to our entire social work services department. So hopefully, by the end of this school year, we will have 45 individuals. So to be able to increase from 3 all the way to 45 is a tremendous increase in those supports. So we're very excited about that.
This question, no, actually there's 2 that are somewhat related. They talk about past complaints about provision of services and students with disabilities not receiving services that they may be entitled to. And it wants to know what improvements is the Learning Support Division doing to address these concerns and these past complaints?
So as I mentioned earlier, we had an on-site visit in April of 2023, and there were some areas that we have to address, and we're creating some action plans in each of those areas. There was also a systemic complaint that also addressed the specially designed instruction, and we want to make sure that we're addressing that as well. So our responsibility is to put systems in place and make sure that we have methods of documentation. And then we're also looking at all of the staffing ratios that we have. We know, as Mr. Hyde mentioned earlier, there is a critical shortage in the area of speech and language pathologists. So we're trying to think outside of the box and do some creative thinking as far as how we're going to address that shortage. And we're working with the Human Resources Department in that area. We also have to create a training plan as an outcome of that request from DOE, and we're working on that as well.
Okay. This question deals with Roosevelt Academy, and it's a question about, they were wondering, would Roosevelt remain an ungraded school? Do we have any updates on that? Would Roosevelt remain an ungraded school? Is that something you could address, Tracy?
Roosevelt is registered with the state as what's considered an alternative site. So with that, they are not a graded site. And if and when they were ever become a graded site, that registry with the state would have to change. I've not gotten any indication that that's the plan at this time. So for the next foreseeable future, we will stay on a school improvement rating rather than a letter grade.
This question goes with, why does my child's 504 plan need to be updated? And do I need to provide a new medical diagnosis? Can somebody also who's going to address that, can they also explain what a 504 plan is and how it differs from, say, an IEP?
Sure. So a Section 504 plan. A Section 504 plan is a plan for accommodations and assistance for a student who has a physical or mental impairment, but they do not require specially designed instruction. If we had a student who had a physical or mental impairment who needed specially designed instruction, we would be looking for an IEP to see if they are eligible to receive services through an IEP. So Section 504 provides that kind of like a beginning level of support to those students who have those physical and mental impairments to see if they can be successful with accommodations primarily in that general education setting. By law, that Section 504 plan needs to be reviewed periodically. And the guidance that we have is that unless our district says otherwise, the rules that we use for ESE would also apply to Section 504. So in Polk County, we have a rule that says your 504 plan must be reviewed and updated every 3 years. Very similar to the triennial evaluation that we have for an IEP. However, the second part of that question was, do I need a diagnosis to qualify for Section 504? You do not require a diagnosis to be eligible under Section 504. What we need to have is evidence of a diagnosable impairment, even if there is no diagnosis at this time. So our school psychologists and other evaluators can help us collect that evidence when we don't have a diagnosis to consider, to see if we have a student who needs to be eligible for those accommodations and services through Section 504.
Okay, thank you. This question deals with students who have sort of severe behavioral issues in class, and it wants to know what can we do, or why do we have to wait to place some students in a least restricted environment if it's clear that they need a least restricted environment? Can someone explain like how that analysis takes place for a student to be placed in perhaps a different class, how that unfolds?
Okay. So when we're talking about students' behavior challenges, we still look at the continuum of services. So we look at the tier supports. So we look to see, is the tier 1 supports, are they working, even if they have an IEP. So students never leave that MTSS process. They're always going to be serviced through that MTS and tiered interventions. And so when we look at a student and we look at the behaviors, we look at, is there a behavior intervention plan? If there isn't one, is that what we need? Or is it a tier 3 intervention where we're having to change some things in the classroom? We collect the data, we analyze the data, and if it's being implemented with fidelity, then we can make decisions about what's next for the student. When we talk about where one student is compared to the other, we have to look at the data in between the two, and we have to look at consistency of the implementation. I think that's the number one thing a lot of times that we run across, is that we come up with these great plans, but then we don't necessarily implement with fidelity or consistently. And so a student may have great 2 days, and all of a sudden, oh, they're great. We don't need these reinforcers. We don't need the plan anymore because they're good. But then the student goes back to engaging in some of those behaviors that become impactful to their day. So the data is very important. We're data-driven. We as a district are now hiring board-certified behavior analysts. In the past, I've been in district for about 15 years. We've never had BCBAs. We have a BCBA, we have a BCABA, which is the assistant behavior analysis. And they're really working through those functional behavior assessments to really put out some really quality work and some quality behavior intervention plans. The challenge sometimes comes is that implementation and the follow through. So we provide the support when, again, my department with the behavior and mental health, our academic behavior support teacher, some of you know them as ABIS. When I first started working as an autism TRST, we had 5. We are up to 25 positions. Currently, we have about 14 filled, because we're not taking away from the schools, so we're having a hard time also filling those up. But we have more supports. We are going out there. We're providing the support. We're hiring some behavior techs. We understand that behavior is a big, it's impactful throughout the whole entire day. But here's the things. A lot of times, there's not a whole lot of, when we're looking at the more restrictive environment, where is that? What does that look like? And is that really the best thing for a student that's not going to be able to interact with their peers within their environment? Number one is data-driven. Where is the data? How does that, come together? When we're talking about tier 3 interventions, we look at, the function of the behavior. That's the most important thing. What is the student trying to tell us? A lot of those behaviors are communication. What are they trying to tell us? Do they have a communication system? Are they able to tell us clearly, what is going on? Is it mental health? A lot of times, my department, they intertwine together because of the mental health aspect and the behavior aspect. So we may have a student that's being supported by both sides of my house. And so when we're looking at behaviors, it is an IEP team committee decision when we're looking at more restrictive placement, and it's based on the data that we collect and the implementation of our plans.
Okay. And you had mentioned, kind of trying to fill positions, and this last question here kind of talks about turnover and retention and just the difficulties and the challenges of that, both in the ESE department, also in teaching as well, I know is also very difficult. What are some of the challenges of being able to retain and to actually recruit folks, and what are we doing to try to, address that? Do we have any strategies that we're employing or ways that we're trying to help with recruiting and retention?
I will start with that question. I'm sure others will want to weigh in on that question as well. But I will talk specifically in my world of student services. Two of the positions that we really do struggle to fill are nurses and school psychologists. We struggle to fill our nursing positions because nurses are in incredibly high demand in many, many, many places. And very often there are different schedules, sometimes more flexible schedules, that they can take a different position for rather than coming into the school system where our schedule is very, very set and very rigid. When it comes to our school psychologists, one of the challenges that we are facing as a country, not as a county, as a country, is a critical shortage of these positions. Our positions, our university programs in school psychology are closing due to lack of interest. We don't have enough people who are interested in going into this profession to fill the need of all of the districts across the county. So next week, I am taking part in a meeting with all of the university supervisors across the whole entire state to look at the number of students that are coming into those programs and to try to brainstorm ways of making those programs more enticing. Mr. Hyde mentioned changes to internship. And we are also following with that when it comes to our school psychologists. So for the first time ever, we are offering consistently paid internships with benefits to our school psychologists who are trying to come on board. One of the strategies that we're using to try to recruit school psychologists to come to Polk County is we are going out of state to seek people who want to move to our lovely Central Florida area. If you are living in Chicago right about now, Central Florida looks great. Come on down here. So we want to make sure that we're using all of those tools to our benefit so that we can recruit from out of state so that we're not only relying on our in-state programs to bring candidates to us.
Very good, thank you.
There have also been a lot of changes in the ESE department, and sometimes with change, or many times with change, there's a lot of movement, and there are a lot of vacancies currently in the ESE department as far as ESE facilitators and some of the program specialists because their roles have changed. We have recently addressed that by sending out a survey to address the climate to make sure there's not anything that we can do differently as far as supporting the staff. As far as speech and language pathologists, we discussed that earlier. We are trying to look at other ways to get speech and language pathologists to come in. Same thing with occupational therapists. We have additional contracts. Part of the concern since COVID is there are a lot of staff that are able to work virtually, and that's the request that is coming our way whenever we're trying to fill contracts. And that's and even though if that is the only option, then it's better than nothing. But we know that it's better to have face-to-face interaction with our students.
Very good. And then this question has to do with what do I do if I think my child has a disability? Is there any advice that you could give to anybody, either a new parent, someone moving to the area, what they should do in that situation?
Sure. So I heard the question is, what do I do if I think my child may be a child who has a disability?
Correct.
Okay. So if you are a parent coming into Polk County for the first time, or you are seeing your child begin to struggle in different areas, whether that's academically, behaviorally, or socially, one of the first and most important things that you can do is communicate that concern to your child's teacher. Make sure your child's teacher is aware of that concern. Then, something else that you can do is you can bring that concern for your child very often to your school counselor. Our school counselors are heavily involved in this process of doing evaluations to see if children qualify for different kinds of disabilities. You, again, are not responsible for knowing who to ask or what to ask. If you take that concern to any person at the school, we will take that concern seriously and we will do our best to try to connect you with the right people in that process. As Mr. Hyde explained when he was doing his introduction, there are rules and there are procedures in place of how quickly we have to address those concerns. So when you bring a concern to us, we have 30 days to consider your concern, and then we have to do something. We have to either go forward with an evaluation to see if your child qualifies as a person with a disability, or we have to tell you why we're not going to do that. And we have to tell you why in writing so that you understand. Please know that if we are saying no for any reason, that no is not a forever no. Because if circumstances for your child change, if we're able to do something different and it works for a little while, as Denise was saying, but then it stops working, we can reconsider that need for evaluation and for assistance at any point in time. And you as the parent have the right to request that evaluation at any point in time. And you can do so more than once if you feel that's necessary for your child.
Very good. I think we've actually covered the questions that we had submitted. There is a title slide, I think, in the slide deck that deals with our upcoming forums. So if we could leave that up there too. I just want to make sure that people know that there are going to be other opportunities if they weren't able to make it tonight. We are going to have 3 more that are going to be taking place in the coming week, or excuse me, 4 more that are going to be taking place in the coming weeks. So please, if you haven't had a chance to come out tonight, please come to one of these. We would really appreciate it. Do you have another? Sorry, go ahead, Sherry.
Can I just share one more
Sure.
piece of information?
Sure.
On December 2nd at Lake Region High School, we are going to do a learning support symposium. And that learning support symposium is just another chance for you to come out and meet even more resources than we brought with us here tonight. So we brought our discretionary projects here tonight, but on December 2nd, we're gonna bring our community projects as well. So there will be community projects there. There will be a chance for you to hear more from the learning support staff, which is the 3 of us on this side of the stage. We will be teaching classes specific to certain topics. We're going to feed you breakfast and lunch if you come out. And so there's a great chance to come and get just more information and resources if you have a child who is struggling in any way, or if you're just looking for more information about how to help your child succeed in school.
Very good.
Lake Region High School. On December 2nd.
Yep. And we're going to add all that.
8:30 to 1:30, 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m.
And we'll add that to the homepage of the district website and get that out there as well. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. We appreciate it. We'll be around for a little bit longer if you have any questions you'd like to come up. But other than that, I think we'll end tonight's meeting. Thank you.